So I found it quite hard being on a corporate floor, being probably like one of 5 black people, to be honest. There's like over 300 of us. Yeah. And just seeing how to navigate kind of getting on projects, just seeing how things kind of worked, you kind of realize that, wow, because I don't look like people, I'm having a lot of a harder time. And I this is not me, self-pity. There was times, and I'm somebody who I like football. I'm really into sports and that stuff. There'd be times that I'll join conversations and add something, and people would just kind of go silent, and I'll be like,
really?
Don't hire diverse people and then tell them to excel here, you need to be like A.
Yeah.
Like it's the most demoralizing and unbeneficial thing for that person and your organization. I think that's what a lot of corporations do, and a lot of just organizations do. They're like, yeah, let's improve diversity, but you need to be like this and be like this and be like this to thrive here. And I think that's why you have issues with that middle management bit, because people get there and it's like, okay, well, I don't like to attack problems this way, or this is not how I like to manage. And they were like, well, you don't manage right, so you either get in line or step out. And people are like, well, I'm gonna have to step out then, because I can't thrive like this, I can't work like this. Your business is built with people.
Yes.
And if you don't know how to manage people, if you don't know how to motivate people, if you don't know how to train people, if you don't know how to encourage people, you're not going to build a successful business.
No.
If you don't know how to inspire people as well, you're not going to build a successful business.
Eat a piece of humble pie, remove your emotions out of it. 17% of black women are in the process of starting businesses or have side hustles, but only 3% are running mature businesses. What do you see as broken? Is it lack of investment, or even more sort of bias-based?
My name is Claudia Green, and this is She Did That, the podcast shining a spotlight on remarkable women who are breaking barriers and proving that greatness knows no gender. From female founders who have raised millions of pounds, the investors changing the landscape as we know it, to survivors of tragedy who have achieved the amazing, and many more. We will share the stories of these incredible women who will inspire and empower you. In order to support us and these women, please subscribe on your viewing or listening channel of choice so we can continue our mission of sharing the stories that should and need to be heard.
Today's guest started off her career in finance, in M&A, in the corporate world. She then helped co-found a non-for-profit which helps black professionals within finance and accounting navigate their way through their careers. She's now the head of platform for Kindred Capital, an early stage venture capital fund in Europe. And she is going to share with us her insights on diversity and inclusion in the workplace, how we can better support not just women, but women from ethnic minorities. I'm very, very excited to delve into a whole host of topics on this matter. Thank you, Alice. Thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
It's obviously always much easier when I know the person.
Yeah.
So I kind of know exactly where I want to go. We've got a few topics to cover. But we'll start in the place that I always start, which is just a snapshot of your background.
Yeah. So I am born and bred in London, North London to be precise. I went to a state school. After that, I went to the University of Nottingham. I studied finance, accounting and management. I kind of always thought I wanted to become a chartered accountant. Not because I'm boring, but because it was more so like a fallback. I actually wanted to be on the West End. So the goal was to be on the West End, but in case I don't become a star, I can be an accountant because I like maths. Little did I know accountancy has nothing to do with maths. So yeah, I did the finance, accounting, management. I did a couple of internships at a couple of the big four. And then following that, I started off in corporate M&A in PwC. So I did that.
That's intense, no?
Yeah.
Like crazy hours.
Yeah. It was super busy. And I think it was kind of glamorized in terms of, working really late, doing the golden roundabout. So it's kind of like when you work all the way to the next morning, you kind of go home, shower, come back and then start working again. So it would be really intense on projects, but when you're not on projects, it will be fine. But yeah, I did that for a couple of years, chartered. I realized I hated it after 3 months, but I was going to see this through. I was considering leaving, and then I actually ended up moving internally. I'm running an accelerator called Raise, where I was working with European founders to help them with their Series A fundraising. So that was really great. I really loved working with founders. and supporting them on that journey. During that period, I co-founded a non-profit called New Gen Accountants with 4 other accountants. And that was all focused on just improving diversity and inclusion within finance and business. So we did that for a few years. And I later stepped away. And then following running the program for a couple of years, I joined an executive search firm for a year, where I was the head of community and ecosystem. So not doing the recruitment side, but actually building out community of exec talent across Europe, focused on improving their understanding of fractional work, which is actually something that you know very well, and then partnering with VC funds as well. And then I joined Kindred over a year ago as initially the head of community and the community lead, and now I'm the head of platform. So I look after all of the portfolio support for the fund. But yeah, quick snapshot.
Wow. Okay, let's go back to the non-for-profit.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in this. What was your idea behind it and why did you want to do it?
Yeah, I think it definitely came from like a first-hand experience of just realizing how hard it is to navigate a corporate space where nobody has a similar background to me and no one really looks like me, or has the kind of same expectations on them. So I found it quite hard being on a corporate floor, being probably like one of 5 Black people, to be honest. There's like over 300 of us. And just seeing how to navigate kind of getting on projects, just seeing how things kind of worked, you kind of realize that, wow, because I don't look like people, I'm having a lot of a harder time. And this is not me, you know, self-pity. There was times, and I'm somebody who like, you know, I like football, I'm really into sports and that stuff. There'd be times that I'll join conversations and add something and people would just kind of go silent, and I'll be like,
really?
Yeah. And I'll be like, well, this is random. And then you can kind of watch your peers and like you see their portfolio of projects and you're like, why is their portfolio completely different to mine? Like they're doing like meaty pieces of work and mine's like bits and pieces, and then the feedback I'm getting is, oh, she's great but she's not excelling at the rate we would have expected. It's like, oh, you keep putting me on rubbish projects, like you need to put me on good things. And just seeing like how this is really difficult and speaking to some peers and being like they're having very similar like experiences, and then me figuring out, okay, like I can either play the game and kind of make this work for me, or I can do something to kind of change it for people coming after me. And I actually had a couple of conversations with a few people and they were just like, just play the game, like you know what you need to do. And I was like, I don't really want to play the game, to be honest.
What is the game though? You're supposed to wait longer than everybody else?
Oh yeah, you just kind of work 10 times harder. Literally, you work hard, or you make loads of complaints, or you just like buddy up with like certain influential people and try and get on their good side. And so, you know, you're kind of progressing based upon who you get on with rather than the work that you're doing. And I was kind of like, I just don't really have the energy. I'm somebody who just genuinely doesn't have the energy for that. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and it's like I just want to do really good work and then I want to go home. And I want to get on with people I get on with, and I want to be a warm light in any space I am. But I also don't want to have to like pretend to be someone I'm not. Like I don't have a similar background. So you're like, you know, you're talking about going to do this on the weekend. I'm like, I'm never going to be doing that on the weekend. Like that's something that doesn't interest me. And so I spoke to a few of my soon-to-be co-founders, and they had kind of had similar experiences. And we were like, what can we do? And we were like, we can try and build awareness, but we can also just try and create a community which just supports peers. Yeah. So there's a safe space for them. And we were kind of like, yeah, let's just do that, because we want to make a difference for the up and coming professionals. And that's something I'm super passionate about. Like I really like helping people where I can, and I think it makes sense given what I'm doing now. So yeah, we kind of spoke to a few peers and we're just like, look, let's do what we can. You know, we might not be moving the needle for society, but in our local vicinity, we feel like we can make a difference.
And I think there's actually, obviously there are all different reasons for bias, but I think there's maybe not so much now these days, but like back when we started working, I think there were a lot of people that genuinely didn't know, as in like, I don't know, the white guy from Cambridge, he didn't know that someone of color might come in and be given less opportunity. Like I think there was a lack of knowledge. They discovered that as time went by, but I think there are people that don't actually really realize how bad it was and how much work still needs to be done. It's sort of ignorance as well.
Yeah, no, I can see what you mean. I mean, I think as individuals, we're very self-absorbed, and we often are just focused on our our linear path, and we don't look to the side and be like, oh, what's going on with other people? And we're so focused on like our success, especially in certain environments. When you're in like a corporate space with a big brand, what I realize is they hire the same archetype of person. These are all very high achievers, ambitious people who are kind of like perfectionists, who are very competitive. So you get into this space where everybody there is used to being like number one.
Right.
And so everybody's like focused on themselves. So like, you know, they may notice that you're not doing so well, but they won't inquire why, because they're just like, I'm doing better than this person. This is great. I just need to keep on. I just need to keep on. I need to do better. And it makes sense when you think about like how they, how like performance reviews in these companies, like you're literally ranked. Like you're given a number.
Yeah.
So I do think there's people who, you know, who may not be 100% aware of what's going on, but they can see. Like I find it hard to be like, oh, you know, like they have no clue that it's harder for somebody who doesn't look like them or doesn't have the same background as them to progress, because the reason why they're progressing is because of that familiarity. I'm not going to say that they're not doing hard work. They are working hard. Yeah. But they know that lunchtime conversation, that after drinks conversation, that they know that these little things are helping them, and that's why they double down on it, and they can see that their peer can't do those things.
But management who are handing out the projects must be fully aware. What are they doing? Like, do you think they're sitting there and saying, she's black, she probably won't be able to do as good a job? I mean, is it really that?
No, I don't think it's that at all. I think it's just more so a bias of, I want to work with him. I like him.
Like an unconscious bias almost. I'm picking you because I like you.
Yeah, it's not that I don't want to work with you. I mean, I think there's some cases of that when people are just racist. Yeah. But or classist or sexist. There's so many things. But I actually think the main issue is that it's favoritism. It's just favoritism thrives in these environments. And so you have juniors fighting to be the favorite. And it's just like, this is work. It's not the school ground.
I mean, I think it's just madness that just like by someone's ethnic background and what they do on the weekends can dictate how hard they have to work. Because I'm hearing this a lot, like from I mean, I'm hearing it from women in general, but definitely more so women from sort of ethnic minorities. The same thing's coming up. I have to work double as hard. I have to prove something. Other people are looking at me because I'm one of the only ones. So I've got extra pressure on my shoulders because I have to do more and be better. Yeah. And I just think that's absolutely mad.
Yeah, it's mad, but I think we see this in like a lot of areas of our life. Again, I think as human beings, we all have a bias for comfort, and it's easier to gravitate to somebody who looks like you, who has the same background as you and experiences you, because it means you have to do less work. There's less investigating. There's less pulling back the weeds and finding out, oh, like, who is this person at their core? Like, are there similarities? Because you just assume we're going to have lots of things in common because we look the same. So I think you see it in work, you see it relationally, you see it all the way through society. And I think it's a shame because at our core, we're just like all human beings. Right. And there's so many areas where we can connect, even if we don't look the same or don't have the same experiences. So yeah, it's a big shame.
I think that's a shame as well, particularly because when we met, we were like, right, we're both from North London. Yeah. We were like into the same sort of things. Yeah. I don't know football, but apart from that, into the same sort of things, like just flowed really well, and we had a lot of commonalities. Yeah. So I think it's just tragic that people can literally just turn around, look at someone.
Be like, no, not today.
No.
Yeah.
And it's like
don't have the energy.
The non-for-profit, what kind of things were you doing in order to educate people?
Yeah. So we kind of, first of all, started off with, so we had 3 pillars. And we kind of initially started off with the working professionals, so that middle pillar, people like our peers, and thinking about what are the small things we can do to support one another, like what would be really beneficial to us. And small things like a study group or WhatsApp group where people can be like, oh, I'm about to go and do this exam. Does anyone have any kind of resources or tips? If anyone's done it before, like what are the things I could kind of, be thinking about was like one of the first things we did. Super useful. Also just a safe space, because I think a lot of people from a particular background, it's like, if I fail this exam, I'm going to lose this job. And it was ridiculously hard for me to get this job. I I can't go work for my uncle's company. It's just kind of like, I need to pass this exam because I will lose my graduate scheme.
Yeah.
So just having that safe space of people being like, I'm super stressed and like, I don't really know what I'm going to do and stuff, that kind of stuff. Or like, I had to do this retake. We just thought that's like a basic that we can provide. So that was pillar one. And that later then expanded to us kind of doing things. We're partnering with the likes of ICAW, Kaplan. We did a scholarship with Kaplan to pay for the exams of one of our community members, doing kind of panel talks with JP Morgan just around, you know, where can a accountancy take you and stuff like that. Just things which we thought were just, how can we increase the knowledge and the network of our peers? And then we thought, okay, actually there's a top of funnel issue as well, in terms of there's not enough people kind of going into this, the finance and business kind of world, and mainly accountancy. Why is that? And so we thought what we could do is maybe partner with like secondary schools, and just do that educational piece in terms of like, why is accountancy interesting or fun? You know, why should you get into it? So we went to a few schools, we ran a program doing kind of workshops and being like, look, this kind of professional qualification can take you here, can take you here, can take you there. It may not be glitz and glam, but this is where it can take you. But there's the potential there, because I think there was just a lack of education in the space. And then the final piece, and that was like a few years in, we realized, okay, there's people who have got this accountancy degree and they're kind of like, I don't know what I can do with it to accelerate my career. Because I think a lot of people associate being an accountant with then just being an auditor or going to work for an accountancy firm. We were like, no, like if you look at the data, most of like CFOs and VPs of finance have accountancy degrees, and these people are making lots of money. They're very, very influential. They're working for like leading companies. This is where your accountancy can take you in terms of like the skills that you've learned and how to apply it. And so we did a lot of work with chartered accountants, thinking about his educational pieces, his like peer mentorship programs, so connecting them with serious experienced professionals in the field, in terms of like, can you mentor them in terms of like how to carve out a career similar to yours, as like they have aspirations to join you.
So that leads me really well into the next question, because how can we improve diversity in this area? And do you think that does start from school age? Because I think ultimately, it's a knock-on effect. Are there enough people that are even studying this at university? Do they have the knowledge they need to make these decisions? I
think there's definitely like small educational pieces, but if I look back in terms of my university cohort, it was a very diverse group. And actually what you find is individuals from, diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, they do these sorts of courses because it's something that's very much like ingrained culturally. You need to become a doctor, you need to become an engineer, you need to become a teacher, you need to become an accountant. These are things which are seen as very safe jobs, which a lot of, which a lot of diverse communities really encourage. So I think that bit is fine. I think the issue comes is that once these first of all, these individuals getting good jobs after university, there's a big problem obviously in terms of people qualifying with great results from university and then struggling to get into good jobs, especially in these massive corporations where if you kind of have this stamped on your CV, it's going to mean it's easier for you to kind of get that next role and that next role. So I think that's that first thing. But then also when these individuals do get into these big corporations, are the environments conducive for their growth? I think that's the issue. You go into the likes of PwC, EY, Deloitte, and at the most junior levels, there's improved diversity. But then when you look at that middle management, senior management, it's like almost non-existent. And you have to ask yourself, why are all these individuals not progressing? And I think it's because the environment is not conducive for their growth. They get into an environment which is very hostile. They're struggling to be seen. Their work is not being appreciated. They're not getting the promotions they need. And so after a while, they have to leave. They have to leave and carve out another journey somewhere else. So I think it's about these organizations thinking about, okay, great. We have a good top of funnel of diverse candidates. How can we make the environment conducive for keeping them, retaining them, and letting them excel? And we all know it's like a pyramid structure, so we get it. There's going to be natural attrition. But the attrition you would expect to be in the same sort of ratio in terms of like the split. of?
I think that's a key thing, because I used to work with quite a lot of corporates, and they had these sort of roles. This is like, we're probably going back like 8 or 9 years, and they would have a role on and say, can you hire for me? And I say, yeah. They're like, could you just get someone from a diverse background? And I was like, yeah, sure. That's great. Why? Like, what led you to this? I've just been given a quota I have to fill.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, can you share any more on that? No, literally just had my management meeting and was told, have to have X amount of women, X amount of people from diverse backgrounds. And can you just find one? And it was so deflating and disheartening, because you think there's like that glimmer of hope. They're okay. They want to help. They want to give opportunities to people that deserve them, frankly, who are no less able than their counterparts, their white English counterparts, male ones. And I found that really, really sad. But I think the key thing here is that was always at a very junior level, wasn't getting those instructions like higher up the chain. Like once you sort of got to line manager level, which isn't hugely senior, it's just looking after a few people, sometimes only 2 or 3. I wasn't hearing that around that sort of level. So it's like, what's happening in between that entry level and then line management level? What's dropping off here? What are you doing internally that is making people... Because there's got to be a reason, because it's happening everywhere. There's got to be this reason why people might not feel comfortable or might not feel that they have the opportunity to progress the way that they really, really, really want to. So I think it's great all this work is being done. Equally, you're seeing like top end stuff where you see, okay, we've just appointed a C-level exec. It's a woman of color. Great. But like, what's happening in the middle there?
Yeah, exactly.
But what's going on? Because that's not the majority. That is like here and there at best. And you think, what's going on here? Like in that, the key area, the key years of your career, perhaps, when you're not junior anymore, but you're not like ready to be exec level. And that's where I'm seeing like the most, when it comes to lack of diversity, but women too, because I had Frankie Smith on the podcast the other week, and she said that only 16% of financial advisors are actually women. So, which is a really shocking, it's a shocking figure.
Yeah.
And I think that's sad. But I also think back to my school days, and I don't think we were ever encouraged to, I mean, me personally, no, definitely was not encouraged to do anything with numbers.
Yeah.
But there wasn't any particularly... Like, I don't think there were any particular programs or anyone sort of guiding women towards that area in any way, shape or form.
Yeah, I think generally education around just finances and economics is poor for children or young adults, first of all. But I think, for women, I can only speak about maybe like in the home as well, and just like society, when you look at the things that we're kind of fed, women are not encouraged to be thinking about like money management and like wealth creation and stuff like that at all. It's more so like, the man does that, your job is the other things. And I think it's important to have a mesh of both. And I think there's so much good work being done in this space around just financial literacy for women, that I think hopefully things will change in the years to come. There's always going to be a bit of a lag. But I think for the few generations to follow us, things will definitely improve and balance out a lot more. Whether it will be 50-50 ever. And if there's a need for it to be 50-50 is a whole other debate. I don't...
Just more just more balance.
Yeah, just more balance. Whether 50-50, 70-80, I don't really know. I don't really care. I don't think we should be aiming for those things. But I think it's just access and opportunity, which is important.
I think... Yeah, do you know what? I think you're right. I think when I started off sort of in the corporate world the first few years, it didn't really cross my mind. A, because I was in a very male-dominated environment, so any woman was just great to have near me. But as a whole, I think there were 200 people. And of those 200, there were women that were in like compliance and stuff, but actual consultants billing. On my floor, 5. And 1 came from a diverse background. That was it really. So like, but I still didn't, you're right. People are, especially at the beginning of their careers, they are self-centered, and you do need to be to a like certain extent, really focus on your goal. But it never really dawned on me that much until I kind of went out of the corporate world and was working for people, and particularly maybe earlier stage companies where they felt a bit more open to be vocal.
Don't hire diverse people and then tell them to excel here, you need to be like A.
Yeah.
Like it's the most demoralizing and unbeneficial thing for that person and your organization. I think that's what a lot of corporations do and a lot of just organizations do. They're like, yeah, let's improve diversity, but you need to be like this and be like this and be like this to thrive here. And I think that's why you have issues with that middle management bit, because people get there and it's like, okay, well, I don't like to attack problems this way, or, you know, this is not how I like to manage. And they were like, well, you don't manage right. So, you know, you either get in line or step out. And people are like, well, I'm going to have to step out then, because I can't thrive like this. I can't work like this. And I think that's in VC as well, right? There's a certain way that you do VC. There's a certain game
the way,
and it's just like, well, that's why certain people get financed and other people don't get financed.
Yeah, it all trickles down.
Yeah, exactly.
In the same way. But I just think I think you raised a really important point there, because I think I'm seeing loads and loads and loads of work around hiring, where it comes to diversity and inclusion, and that's fabulous. But how are you fostering your culture? How are you nurturing your talent once they're in the door? And that is the key problem at the moment. Often it's not about, no, don't get me wrong. There's still plenty of bias in hiring. But there are a lot of organizations that are like, right, we need to tackle this and have a more diverse workforce. But then are you equipped to manage them? And I think there needs to be a lot more work and reflection about diversity and inclusion, and also involving other people in that. I think people are so scared of having conversations about it that they're not having the right conversations with the right people. And actually arguably, like, will a white guy in their 30s who went to a red brick university be able to tap in to or even have the skill set to understand it? And whilst, a lot of people have never had to live that, I think you have a responsibility to try and understand it, or get some people in that do understand that and how you can work better. I worked with a company once and they did this big hiring drive, lots of women, lots of people of color, and literally the CEO went up to, it was a mixed group of girls and boys, but they were all black. Went up and was like, could you try and not just have lunch with each other? And they were like, what do you mean? And he was like, just mix. But they didn't feel comfortable to mix. No one was approaching them either, which is absolutely mad. But it's like, just don't have lunch just with each other.
Would you have done that to a group of white people?
Absolutely not. Like, absolutely. Can you imagine going up to a group of white? Could you actually just not have lunch just with each other? And I think it's like, okay, so you've onboarded different types of people. Now what are you going to do? Yeah,
it's just like, again, I feel like it's emotional. I don't know. Like for me, like if I was a CEO of a company and I realized, okay, look, I've got a group, the black people together, the Asian people together, the white people together. I don't like that. I really want everyone to mix. I wouldn't go over and try and be like, you need to, two of you over there do. I'll be like, you know what? I'm going to create an initiative which forces people to be together. Like, we're gonna have team lunches, guys. We're gonna sit on one massive table.
Yeah.
And it's just like, naturally you get people feeling a bit more comfortable. But you know what? That takes a bit more effort, and people don't want to put effort in. People, I personally feel, people want to make it seem like they're making an effort without putting in the effort. So the effort they put in is that we've hired a group of diverse people.
Yeah.
That's not the issue. You need to put in double amount of work in terms of creating a conducive environment. So that means, okay, I need to be a bit more thoughtful around like how we think about team socials or team interactions, thinking about team, the office layout. I just need to be more mindful. I need to go an extra 5%, and people don't want to do that. And part of me understands, because life is tough. And people want to get by the bare minimum. We do. Like, do you know what I mean? There's so much going on that people want to get by the bare minimum. But when it comes to important issues, such as diversity, or just like, such as diversity, or just being a good human being, like you have to put that extra 5% in. It's strange.
That's why I'm trying to, I've been exploring and I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this sort of peer mentoring scheme things, where you literally buddy two different people up, and they can be from completely different parts of the business. One could be super senior, one's not, but essentially, even if it's someone who's sort of on your level, you hold each other accountable, but you have someone to share, share the highs and the lows.
Yeah, that's so random that you said that. I actually just created a peer mentorship scheme for our portfolio.
Oh my God, I'm going to need to help with that one.
Yeah. But it's been really great. So basically just trying to find peer partners across the portfolio for individuals who are either looking to enhance their technical skills, their soft skills, so like managing, gain career insights. And what I basically did was I get them to fill out this form. What are the areas you're looking to kind of connect on, and then match them based upon what they're trying to connect on, but then also like their functional expertise. Because I think at the earlier stage, often you're the only person in that function.
Yes.
And you need somebody to bounce ideas off. And it's just like you said, that safe space of being like, is this a dumb question? Or, or like, how did you approach this? And, there's some of the partners, there is somebody who's a lot more senior and there's versus someone who's a lot more junior. But I think that's really beneficial because if the more senior person is looking to enhance their like managerial skills, you can use this as a way of practicing how to manage.
Exactly.
If the more junior person is looking to gain career insights, you can use this person to kind of ask questions on, investigate their career progression and stuff like that. But yeah, that's something I really, really love about community building. It's just like being able to connect people and enabling people to learn from each other.
Yeah, I think that something like that, it was just like a rough brainstorm, but connecting people together might not ordinarily connect because they're on a different team. And being able to just have that person where you check in with each other monthly, right? And you have each other's goals. These were your goals. Did you fulfill them? You hold each other accountable. Yeah. And I just think it brings people together a lot more because there's socials and stuff, which are great. But then like they get segregated as well.
And not everybody wants to socialize as well.
Wants to go out drinking.
Yeah, exactly. Especially depends on what the social is as well. So like there's definitely this particular cultures which there's definitely particular cultures of socializing which segregate certain people. So if it's always around drinking or if it's always in the evening for parents, so like impossible. I can't do that or so I just think like I said, it just takes a bit more effort because you have to be a bit more thoughtful. Yeah. You have to mix it up and sometimes people don't want to do that.
So your work now at Kindred Capital, you are the head of platform.
Yep.
What does that involve exactly?
What does it involve? I should be the go-to person for all of our founders and functional leaders internally. I also look after all of our networks. So that's like our experts, our advisors, and different kind of ecosystem players. So let's say service providers or partners. And just thinking about how do we as a fund add value far beyond the money that we're giving them. So that could be anything from talent, connecting them to prospective candidates, supporting them with just like kind of crafting the right journey. So whether that's helping like with JDs, thinking about like you should speak to this advisor or this expert in terms of these are the kind of criteria you should be looking for in an ideal candidate, supporting with BD, thinking about who within the Kindred network can we connect some of our leaders to kind of help them with those opportunities. And then that networks piece is really big as well. So often a lot of our companies are facing particular challenges, whether that's around product or tech. And we're thinking, okay, there's this particular person that we know who you should have us chat with, maybe 1 or 2 conversations or maybe a long-term project where they can kind of help you problem solve this area. And then I think the fourth thing that's super key to the work I do is that community part, that peer-to-peer community. How can I connect and bring our founders together? How can I connect and bring our functional leaders together so that they can kind of learn from each other, that they can create these safe spaces of being like, okay, I'm not the only person who's going through this. You're at a similar stage. You're in a similar environment because we're either in the same sector or we have the same investors or, these are all the things that my day-to-day is rolled around. It's kind of basically getting a lot of inbound requests and then being like, who can I connect you to? And then also thinking about, we have a lot of people who want to provide a lot of support to our portfolio companies. So thinking about, okay, who can I proactively, support and be like, here, there's this opportunity there. Are you interested in that? Are you interested in that?
Yes.
That's a lot of things.
Okay. So but that's really interesting because you've kind of got this bird's eye view.
Should do.
In an ideal world.
Yeah.
This view of so many different companies.
Yeah.
slightly different stages, similar stages, but different stages, different personalities. Like, that's really interesting because a lot of people, they'll stick with sort of their specific portfolio, but you're kind of across everyone. And this might be a really difficult question to ask, but are there any key behaviors or attitudes or characteristics that you have seen in founders that went on to be quite successful, that sort of connect the dots and you think to yourself, do you know what? I think it takes X, Y, and Z to be successul. Not in all cases, but just things you've identified and you thought, I think that's why they might be a bit successful.
Yeah. No, I think, so there's a couple of characteristics that I constantly hear and see which are deemed really desirable. And that's someone who's quite headstrong in terms of they have a vision and they want to see it through and they're very determined to see that vision through, but they're teachable.
Yeah.
Somebody who's willing to take the advice of others. So to be like, okay, like this is my plan. This is what I want to do. I want to get to A, but I don't know every step.
Yeah.
I don't know every step. So I'm going to need that external support to be like, this is how you do step 1 to 2. And then you're good to you. And then he or she can fly to step 10. But then at step 10, they realize I don't know how to get to step 11. And they're like, I need support here. So somebody who's teachable, but headstrong and kind of can work autonomously. I think somebody who has expert knowledge on the domain that they're operating in.
Yeah.
So they're kind of solving a problem that they've had is super key because they're really bought in and they get the journey. And they have an affinity to their customers is super important. I'm trying to think about other ones.
We always hear like the resilience ones.
Yeah, of course, you have to be resilient.
But that's kind of a...
I feel like it's a given.
It is a given. You
Everybody
have to be resilient. I mean, do you know what? You have to be resilient in life.
I was going to say, like, founders, yes, you need to be... let credit where credit's due. Being a founder is literally a 24/7 job.
Yeah.
So I think there's a mental fortitude that you need to have in terms of the resilience of being able to be like, I am so tired, but I have to keep going.
Yeah.
But I think there's a resilience in knowing like I've reached my limit. I need to take a step. I need to take a break, or I need to be able to delegate.
Yeah.
I think that's another thing. Somebody who's not a control freak.
Yeah.
Somebody who's like, I'm in charge, but I can delegate different bits of responsibilities at different stages because I realize I can't do this. It's not a one person show.
Yeah.
I need that support. Like I said before, someone who's teachable. So yeah, resilient in terms of being able to keep going, but also having the emotional intelligence is so underrated.
Key.
It's so key, but it's so underrated because I think a lot of times founders don't realize like you're building a business, your business is built with people.
Yes.
And if you don't know how to manage people, if you don't know how to motivate people, if you don't know how to train people, if you don't know how to encourage people, you're not going to build a successful business.
No.
If you don't know how to inspire people as well, like you're not going to build a successful business.
Or don't be the CEO. It's okay not to be the CEO.
And you do see that. You do see like CEOs taking the business to a certain point and then stepping back and realizing like, I can't do this rest of the journey, or I'm not the best person to take the business to the next step, but I want to stay within the business. Maybe I'll go to like a product leading kind of role or a more commercial role.
Yeah. Well, they're still the founder.
They're still the founder, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that's a brave move. And I've been seeing that, like just looking on LinkedIn recently, I've been seeing that. And I think it's a really brave move, first of all, because like, it's open to people's perception because they think, oh, why is that happening? Why are they stepping aside? But actually, I think they're just focusing on their own vision and their own business. And they're thinking, I'm not the person. I was the person to take this to 100 people. Yeah. I'm not the person to take this to 1,000. Yeah. And that doesn't make them dumb.
No, I think it's really brave. I mean, I don't know how to do it. I'm somebody who's like, if I founded something and then somebody was like, oh, you can no longer be, the CEO, or I decide, I'll be like, excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah. I want to see this through. Yeah. I would take it personally, but you can't. And it's so interesting you say that because, we view things externally and we're like, oh, I wonder what's going on there. They must not be doing a good job. But you actually have no idea. I think it's been super interesting being on, like I said, like having a bit of a bird's eye view of some of these conversations and realizing you're actually completely wrong. They're absolutely amazing CEOs and founders, but they're just not the person for this next stage. And they're such a good founder or they're such a good leader that they're able to identify that and be like, I care more about the success of this business than my ego.
Well, I think it's that whole topic around the best people in business that get results are the ones who can separate their emotions to a certain extent. So you have to be tuned in so that you can be an empathetic leader and care about your people. But at the same time, I remember one of the founders I used to work closely with, he was a lawyer and then now he has an extremely successful legal tech company. I think he's just raised Series B. And we were I was dealing with something internally, not internally, but it was like with one of the portfolio companies. I was like, I don't know what to do. And I wrote this email out and he was like, this has just got emotion all over it. Wrong. He was like, no, think pragmatically, put your business head on. What do you want out of this? What goals are you looking to achieve? Do you think you're going to achieve them by being emotional or trying to appeal to their softer side or their conscience or whatever this mess of an email is that you've put together? No, you are trying to get to an end result. So are they. It's a negotiation. Behave like a business person. And I think that CEOs/founders who aren't able to step away from the CEO position are involving their emotion too much in their business. So it's going to hinder their business. So I think it's also about being able to remove yourself a little bit. Yes, it's your baby and you can go home and feel sad about it. But knowing when the time is right is a skill in itself.
Yeah.
And saying, right, I'm going to appoint a CEO who will know how to take us to the next level. That's smart business. I don't care what people think of me on the outside. I think those are the people that are most successful. Like, eat a piece of humble pie, remove your emotions out of it, and do what's best.
Yeah, definitely. And you never know what's going to happen. Like, there's been so many cases of like CEOs taking a step back and moving to another role internally, and then taking back that CEO seat at a later date if it's what's best for the business.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I think when you're running a business, you've got to put the business first.
Always.
A lot of the founders that I see and I work with, they really are passionate about the problem that they're solving.
Yeah.
And you can see it's like, especially a lot of them are like maybe second time founders and stuff like that, or even the first time founders who are really experts in their domain. They're really passionate about like making a change. And that doesn't mean that business is impact focused. It's just more so like they see a problem and they really want to solve it. And I think a bit like your granddad, it's like, they're going to be really proud about the business that they created and the impact it had on whatever industry that they're focused on.
Yeah.
And that's great for them, because I think that's what you need to be a type of a founder in like a VC backed high paced environment. And that's great for them.
Yeah.
But if that's not you, that's absolutely fine.
That's fine.
And try and find that thing that's going to, keep you up at night, which you don't mind focusing and giving all of yourself to.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you there. I did want to address a couple more questions on the diversity side. So you actually sent me this article, but Ada Ventures published a piece about how we can't become complacent in supporting Black founders. And I looked at the stats. It said 17% of Black women are in the process of starting businesses or have side hustles, but only 3% are running mature businesses. What do you see as broken? Is it lack of investment or even more sort of bias-based barriers? Like, what is this? And I think it comes from, we were discussing earlier, employees. You've got like diverse workforce right at the beginning and then it's just dropping off. The same thing's happening on the investment side. And nobody can argue that it is what's happening. What is the fix here?
I'd be interested to see what they kind of described or as mature, like what's the definition of a mature business?
Yeah, true.
But I think a massive issue is network. VCs run on networks.
Yeah.
For you to kind of progress through it, you need to have the right network.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Black women, first of all, like ethnic wise, the network is ridiculously small in the VC space. And then as a woman, again, the network is ridiculously small.
Yeah.
And like we had said earlier, people find it easier to connect and work with people who look like them and behave like them. And so I think there's a lack of network access to Black female founders.
Yeah.
And so they often are finding it hard to kind of get a step in the door. I think a second piece is maybe the type of sectors and industries that that Black women are building businesses in. Are they VC backable industries?
Yeah.
I think people often kind of don't pay enough attention to or don't do enough research on the type of businesses VCs want to invest in. They want to invest in super fast, high growth businesses, which are going to make them not that 10 million exit like we discussed, but 100 million is not even like a fantastic exit.
Yeah.
That $1 billion exit.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think we're necessarily building in those spaces at times, but I think it's those two things. I think it's we don't have the access to the right networks and we're not being allowed in. And then the second piece is maybe not building in the right spaces. And I think a lot of work needs to be done in opening up those doors and allowing them to kind of come in, and then supporting them once those doors are open.
Yes.
So making sure that they're putting their best foot forward.
Yeah.
So, you meet a Black female founder, she sends you her deck. Take the time to actually go through the deck with her and be like, okay, like, that's not how we speak in VC. You need to change the language here. That slide there, where nobody cares about that. This is the kind of information that they're going to be looking at. Like that, you have 10 seconds to captivate them. Like really giving them that time. And then if you don't have the time or the expertise, then opening your network to the right experts who can help them. So that then when they are kind of getting in front of these investors, they're putting their best foot forward. That nobody can kind of discriminate them based upon the work that they're providing. And then it does come down to, well, if you look at my business proposition versus this person's business proposition, what's the difference?
Yeah.
If you're also giving them training in terms of like how to speak, how to, convey themselves, it then comes down to you really are going to be putting people in the hot seat, because it comes down to why are you not investing?
Yes.
You can't discredit the work that they're doing. So I think, those two things, there's so many other things, but I think those two are key areas.
Yeah, and then opening up sort of the angel network as well, because that might be their best bet before approaching VCs. They may never need to, because you can build a really highly successful, profitable business without going through the VC route.
Yeah.
So it's about, and I know there are a lot of female angel groups now, which is great. And I hope, I don't know much about them, I hope that they are supporting all different women on that journey.
Yeah.
And maybe that is sort of a better route in. But you're right, it's network. They do say it's who you know.
Yeah, no, it really is.
Yeah.
And I think angels are a great way in, especially if, I think historically there was a lot of friends and family rounds, which kind of gave early stage businesses that initial boost before they kind of then went to institutionals.
Yeah.
But angels are a great way of kind of getting some cash injection at the early stage, but then also that networks piece, because that's the whole point of having angels. The value out of angels is that they're going to be writing smaller checks, but they're going to give you access to their networks. And a lot of the times, a lot of these funds are actually using angels as like scouts for their investments.
Yes.
So if you're in front of the right people who are connected to the right funds, it kind of helps with those next steps. But like you said, sometimes it's just the angel, you just need that cash injection and then you're on your way.
Yeah, and then you don't need
the rest
anymore.
of the journey.
Yeah.
Because the VC journey is quite brutal.
And also I think that mentorship is important as well, because you just have to look at the figures to see that it's increasing. More female founders, more women of color, more people from diverse backgrounds, different religions. Like the numbers are growing of people who found businesses. Are the numbers growing particularly well when it comes to how successful those businesses become? I don't know. But I think it's also about helping after.
Yeah, I think mentorship's one thing. I think sponsorship is another thing, which is better. So sponsorship is literally going that extra mile, like I said. So like a mentor would be like, oh, like this is how I've done it.
Yeah.
A mentor is looking back in terms of like, this is what I've done. You can kind of follow it in my stead. A sponsor is a bit more like a coach who is like looking forward.
Yeah.
This is your goal. I'm going to help you reach these milestones so you can make your goal, right? You want somebody who's got some skin in the game, somebody who's actually willing to kind of, go the extra mile for you. I think sponsorship's needed. Less education as well. So it's like less on the educational piece in terms of like, this is how to run a process, or like, this is how to create a deck. It's more so like, no, I need you to kind of like, just open the doors for me, because I can't necessarily open the doors myself. So yeah.
And I think as a white woman, I can't possibly walk in the shoes of Black women and Asian women. I'm Jewish, which is not great one at the moment, but I'm not, I don't walk down the street and people will know I'm Jewish and things. So I do think it's different in that sense.
Definitely.
And I'm someone who really wants to try and help in any way I can better things. But again, these aren't my lived experiences. I don't know how it feels to be in a room full of people that don't look like me, or be given less of a good job genuinely because of the way I look, which sounds mad to me, but I've never had to live that before. And but like, that sounds hard. And I don't know how I would cope with that necessarily. So you do kind of, when it comes around like that white privilege thing, people misunderstand the saying sometimes. Sometimes it just means you had that foot up just by being in a room of people that are like you. But I think what I'm trying to get at, how can, and because it's a female podcast, how can white women become better allies to women of color? Like, how can we do that?
So a number of things. I think in general, at the woman to woman level, there's this unspoken like competitive nature of like, I can be, because we're operating in a space of like scarcity. It's like we often feel like, well, there can only be one successful woman. There's only going to be space for one woman. So it has to be me. I'm going to like tear down the other person. I'm not going to support them because like they're my competition. So I think there's first of all, removing that mind frame and that mindset, and being more like, hey, like I can succeed here and you can succeed here. We can't keep operating in this space where it's like, there's 6 at the table. We already know 5 of them are going to go to men. So there's only one space for women. Yeah. No, it's more so like, let's do our best to make sure that if you're excellent, I'm excellent, we're going to secure 2 of the seats. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It could be 5 women and 1 man. That's the first thing. Like we're equal competitors with the men. That's the first thing. I think then on the white women to kind of, Black and Asian women, how we can support is, you guys have power and networks and access that, many of your peers don't have. Open up those spaces. It's like, I don't know who you're connected to within your family or within your friends, but if I'm having a conversation with you and I'm talking about a particular area, have a think about, there's somebody I know actually who I can connect you with. It doesn't benefit me because I'm not interested in that space, but you should speak to them. Yeah. Just small things like that, or like, oh, you know what? Actually, I met with investor A like 2 months ago. It didn't go well for me, but here's my learnings. Yes. Here's what I advise for you to do and not to do. Do you get what I mean? It's just, nobody's asking for a handout. No, like, not at all. Like nobody's asking for a handout, but it's just thinking about, okay, like, what's one little thing I can do to support or help?
I think it's about asking the question as well, because people like are sort of teetering around the subject and they're so nervous. What words do I use? How do I phrase it? I'm going to offend them. I'm going to look racist. I'm going to this. But I think sometimes you do need to turn around and be like, I get it. I didn't walk in your shoes. I have a certain level of privilege. You don't. How can I help you? Yeah, literally. I think you need to just be like straight about it.
I think, and I think that will be received really well. Yeah. And it kind of removes this like the facade and the fakeness of like, we both know what we're kind of talking about, but
it's
nobody
ridiculous.
Really wants to name it. It's kind of,
just put it out there and be like, look, I'm a bit ignorant in the subject. Yeah. It's like, I don't understand what it is to be you. Tell me a bit about that. Yeah. And how do you think I can actually help? Yeah. Like that's, and being more approachable as well, instead of like dancing around this whole awkward subject. It shouldn't be awkward.
But I think we're quite alike in terms of we're quite like to the point and very much like, let's just be very transparent. I don't want to play the game. Like, let's have a real conversation.
A lot of people aren't though. Yeah. And I do respect that. Yeah. But I think it's more about like, if you don't feel the confidence to put yourself out there and send that person that message on LinkedIn that you met 3 times 5 years ago, do it anyway. Say, I need your help. They might not reply. Fine. They're an arsehole. Yeah, you'll be surprised. They might reply and they might intro you. Yeah. They might be completely ignorant to what they can do to help you. Yeah. And you've actually just put yourself out there, which I get it. It is a big thing putting yourself out there because you don't think, oh no, they never replied or they might not reply. Yeah. Put yourself out there, send that message. who gives a toss what they think about you? Like, oh, that's random.
Yeah.
Remove it all. They're not your family. They're not your friends. No one cares.
That's a really important thing. I think distinguishing the fact that they're not my family, they're my friends. It's awkward, but no, who cares? Like,
Ask the question. And you know what? I think a larger number of people will help than you realize if you go in authentically and say, I don't understand this.
I agree.
I need help, rather than skirting around being like, can we have a coffee?
Yeah. Yes, that's another thing. Just
don't
be
ask
direct.
for coffee.
Don't ask for
just ask
be direct. People appreciate that, and like you said, you'll get a yes or no, and then you keep it moving.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Well, I think we've covered quite a lot there.
Yeah,
it's quite a long podcast now. So let's wrap it up there.
Perfect.
Alice, you're amazing.
But it's okay. I am.
You've got some imposter syndrome floating here.
Small.
Stop it.
Yeah.
We don't have room for that here.
No, it's true.
You're amazing. I think that there's no limits to what you can achieve. And I think there needs to be more women out there like you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And I've no doubt you're going to be successful. Absolutely no doubt. So thank you so much for having such an honest conversation with me. It definitely educated me a lot. And I hope it educates other people as well.
Yeah.
But that was the goal.
Yeah.
So keep slaying.
Amazing. Thanks for having me.